Norris.
And today we're going to talk about the eighth sense. Some people refer to it as the hidden sense. It is interoception.
And it's one of those things that I was not really aware of until I came to STAR. And it's one of those things that's fairly new. So we're going to start out with kind of talking about what it is and where it came from, and then a little bit more about the details about it.
Yeah, so interoception refers to your body's ability to identify your internal sensations from your organs, from your skin. So this is referring to things like hunger, thirst, the need to use the bathroom, if you're feeling hot, if you're feeling cold. Am I missing any?
Fatigue is another one, energy and fatigue.
And getting into adulthood, the feeling of arousal, in referring to sexual experiences.
Yeah, that pleasure and uncomfortable feelings that you can experience. And I think one of the things we talked about is that interoception tends to be less intense than some of our external sensations, so it's one of the ones that can be ignored easier, especially if you're hyper-responsive to the world around you and you're really tuned into the things around you. That interoception can really be turned down or turned completely off until it's an emergency and you're in excruciating pain, or you really need to go to the bathroom, things like that. So basically, I've been really curious about interoception because it was not something that I've known much about in all of my other work with sensory processing challenges. And so I kind of dug a little bit into the history of it and got a little bit geeky about it. And it's been a term that's been around for over 100 years, but it didn't really hit the mainstream until maybe about the last 10 or 15 years. And it didn't really even hit the therapy world when we think about sensory processing until the last few years. So it's fairly new. It wasn't part of Jeanier's original work on sensory processing, so if you're not familiar with it and you think you're well versed in sensory processing, it's okay. We're all learning as we grow and we figure out more and more things about the body. So anyway, interoception is that internal sensation, and just like any of our other senses, it can be something that you're over-responsive to, so you're really sensitive to it. It's something you can be under-responsive to and not respond to it very well or until it's really strong. Or you can have some discrimination challenges with it and just have a hard time being able to put your finger on what that sensation is in your body. So we're going to dig into all of those a little bit more. You want to talk about what over-responsiveness looks like?
Yeah, so over-responsivity to interoception, what that would look like is having big responses to subtle cues from your body. So feeling a little bit of hunger might feel like intense hunger to somebody, and they feel like they need to eat a bunch, but then all of a sudden they start eating and their body responds in a different way. Or it could be in relation to toileting and kind of feeling the need, the urge to go to the bathroom all day, and just a little bit of an urge feels like a big urge to you all throughout the day, and you can't really differentiate a little bit from a lot of it, and it's kind of that uncomfortable feeling of having it all the time.
Yeah, and it can be pain too. So sometimes if you're really over-responsive to those pain signals, you may feel pain more intensely or for longer. Also kind of illness symptoms of my stomach is a little bit upset, might feel like you're dying. You could really have really strong reactions to those subtle cues like Carrie was saying.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to know that there are many other conditions that could bring about these symptoms, and SPD and interoception bringing about some of these symptoms is just one of the causes that it might be.
Right, yeah. So definitely interoception is something we look at in comparison to all of the other senses, and if we see this is spreading across multiple systems, then we can say that it's an interoception difficulty in relation to the other sensory processing challenges. But it's very common to have interoception challenges with SPD. So I'm going to talk about the under-responsive thing that can happen with interoception, and that's kind of the opposite. So you might have a really high tolerance for pain and be able to get hurt and not even notice and have those bruises that you're like, I don't know what happened there. And you can also have that really muted sense of hunger, so you may never feel the need to eat. And Carrie was sharing, she's had a client that has to set a timer to remember to eat and to hydrate and things like that, because thirst and hunger don't really occur to her. I've had clients that have been really under-responsive to the fatigue factor, so they don't understand when their body is starting to get tired, and so they will overexert, and they won't notice that they're tired until they're exhausted. And so I think it's important to think about how you can be over-responsive to some interoceptive signals, such as pain, but under-responsive to others, such as hunger. So it's not necessarily that you're going to be over-responsive to everything or under-responsive to everything. It can vary.
Yeah, and I really liked, Star just posted on our blog a few days ago a really great blog post about toileting and interoception and kind of how those two things go together. It's something that I hear from parents, adolescents, up to adults, that it's something that is such a challenge to them, especially in that under-responsive sense. Kind of thinking about, why is my kid, why are they not toileted? And they're 10 years old, but they're in honors classes, and they're not able to go to sleepovers because they're still having toileting accidents during the night. And that really, I think the author did such a great way of describing how it can impact self-esteem, emotions, confidence, and I really am starting to see that a lot in the adolescent and adult population, where they have the intelligence to know, I should know what it feels like to have hunger. I should know what it feels like to be able to urinate when I need to. And starting to have those conversations, I've just really started to see those high emotional connections with some of these difficulties.
And I think that brings me to the discrimination of interoception, simply because we do have emotions that we sense in our body. And so if you're having a hard time discriminating those interoceptive signals, you may not know if it's coming from an emotional place or from a physical place. So you may have a pain in your stomach, and you might be thinking, well, maybe I'm hungry, and I go and find something to eat. No, it's not hunger.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I need to go to the bathroom, and you go sit on the toilet, and no, not that. And it may not occur to you that you're feeling nervous about a job interview, or that you're upset because someone broke up with you. There can be emotional triggers that we feel in our body, and it lays, that interoception awareness lays that foundation for being able to interpret those emotional states that we have as well. So it's actually a really important sense, and has not gotten much attention to date, but as you can see, it gets pretty complex quickly. And when you combine that with other sensory challenges, going back to that blog post you were talking about, she talked about how, going to the bathroom is not just about recognizing the urge and eliminating in the appropriate time, but you also have to think about the sounds that occur in a bathroom and the tactile experiences that you have from the seat and from the toilet paper and from the water when you wash your hands. And it can be overwhelming when you think about all the different things that our bodies tell us about what's going on inside of us, as well as filtering out what's going on in the world outside of us.
Yeah, and in some of our last videos that we've done, we talk about the importance of identifying low arousal, high arousal, and kind of that in-between state. And if you're not sensing from your body what high arousal feels like, if you don't feel that tightening of your stomach, that quickening of your heart rate, even that your palms are sweating, what I'm learning about even adolescents and adults is that doesn't come so naturally. And it's so interesting being in the room with a parent and a child, or a parent and an adolescent, or a husband and wife, and them saying, okay, this is jittery, this is you feeling high arousal, and they're looking at them saying, why? What is going on? And it's not until they physically feel their heart and they're saying, oh, okay, now I understand that. I think when it happens so naturally to neurotypical individuals who aren't experiencing SPD, it's so hard to understand what it wouldn't feel like just to have those milliseconds of all those signals being sent to us about, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, but I can wait 20 minutes. Having to think about what that would feel like if you didn't have it is a really hard thing to do. So I always try to spend so much time educating families on this, because it's one that I think you can really only learn about through education to people who aren't experiencing it. People who are, they're always saying, yeah, that is exactly what I'm feeling. And so that hidden sense, it is trickier for us as occupational therapists because it's not something in the gym we can do as easily as some of the other senses.
Yeah, and I think we as sensory therapists, we're so good at picking up those subtle cues, and we try and teach individuals those subtle cues that they're showing. And there are some subtle cues of interoception, like, oh, I can see that you're sweating. Let's talk about why.
Mm-hmm.
And the person may not even realize that they're sweating.
Right.
But I think one of the things that I want to touch back on is what I said at the very beginning about how when you're really worried about the world around you, when you don't feel safe in your own skin, it's very easy to ignore those signals.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had individuals talk to me about how I was totally fine when I was around other people. I stepped into the bathroom and all of a sudden I felt like I had the flu. And I didn't realize how stressed out I was in that environment until I had that moment of self-reflection. And again, it's getting that chance to step away from the outer world and tune into what's going on internally. That's one of the things we work with a lot of our clients, of finding those moments that they can do those check-ins where they're able to turn off the outside world for a little bit.
Right. I think this brings up a conversation I had with an adolescent and his mom a few weeks ago, and I was explaining interoception to them, talking about how it's that internal feeling, and he said, oh, that must be the sense that turns off when I'm playing video games. And I think that's exactly kind of drawing on your point, and it was really incredible that he was able to make that connection off of that little knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because there are a lot of people with sensory challenges that do have that tendency to hyper-focus on what's in front of them,
Yeah.
and they do lose sight of what's going on inside of them.
Yeah, so we'll post a couple informational links for you guys if you want to learn more. I think it's such an interesting topic to learn about, and I think more and more is coming out that I've been seeing. And so let us know if you have any questions, and we'll try to answer them the best we can.
Yeah, I think for you therapists out there, it's been so helpful for me to learn about this, and I encourage you to do so, because you do have those questions from parents of like, why is it so hard to potty train? Why am I having so much trouble with test anxiety and things like that? Like it's something that can really impact throughout the lifespan. So as a therapist, speaking to the therapists out there, do what you can to educate yourself on this. It's going to really help change your practice.
Thanks, guys.